Toronto's an amazing city. Most people don't realize this, but Toronto has an urban form unique to North America. So Toronto's a high-rise city. We have thousands of them. And what's unique about Toronto is that most of our high-rise buildings are not located downtown, but are located throughout the region, from Ajax to Hamilton, in Scarborough and Etobicoke, Mississauga, and of course Toronto itself. So where do these buildings come from? Building high-rises was a key to suburbanization in Toronto and in Southern Ontario. So while we built shopping centers, schools, low-rise housing, bungalows in our suburbs, we also built a lot of high-rise housing. And this was planned from the beginning. These buildings were extremely popular during their day. So like today's condos, they were housing for empty nesters, for young couples, for professionals, and for people who wanted to have a different lifestyle than living in a single-family home.
I've been living at a high-rise building on Lawrence Avenue for a number of years. Well, it has its ups and downs. Like, it's about the second time I live inside a building, a high-rise building, and it's different, completely different from living in a house. So, because you have this large segregation when you enter your apartment and you're like totally locked off.
So today these buildings are 50 and even 60 years old, and they play a very different position in the housing market than they were planned for. Today they are the region's affordable housing. There are 500,000 units, home to well over 1 million people. They provide key affordable housing, especially for new Canadians. These buildings are the home to multicultural Toronto. They are the home to amazing communities of new Canadians all over the city. But while there's been an incredible demographic shift in these buildings, the buildings themselves have remained relatively the same. They've actually changed surprisingly little. While Toronto's suburban high-rises are unique to North America, this type of urban development is found throughout the world, especially in Europe. And while the buildings in Europe are of the same vintage and have many of the same challenges as the ones in Toronto, over the last 20 years, many cities throughout Europe have invested to make these neighborhoods sustainable, resilient, and vital parts of their cities. There's an amazing opportunity to learn from.
It's important to have a community space because people need to interact away from their private space. So it gives them a room to maneuver and talk about just about basically anything they want to talk about. Exchange ideas, plans for the future, get to know their neighbors in a more extended way.
In traveling throughout Europe, from Moscow to London, from Amsterdam to Bratislava, I've seen a transformation of these neighborhoods firsthand. Some of the most exciting changes in these neighborhoods are the very small, modest things like activating the ground floor and putting in a coffee shop, putting in a grocery store, having a pop-up market in the open space around these buildings. Working with the City of Toronto, United Way Toronto, Toronto Public Health, and other amazing partners, we're working to make Tower Renewal a reality in Toronto. The East Scarborough storefront is helping to lead the way in Tower Neighbourhood Renewal. Through a community-led process involving hundreds of community meetings, workshops, and charrettes, and working closely with neighboring high-rise building owners CapREIT, the storefront has developed and is implementing a transformative vision for their neighborhood. They've built community gardens, a community food hub, and are building a sports court for the neighborhood. And working with their neighbors, they've taken down chain link fences that had blocked neighborhood access for decades to begin the process of a neighborhood transformation. Toronto has a unique opportunity in North America to have incredibly dynamic suburbs. These high-rise neighborhoods found throughout the city and its suburbs have the potential to evolve into dynamic, diverse, and culturally unique neighborhoods. Places as vital and vibrant as the downtown neighborhoods that Toronto is so proud of. They are the future of Toronto. They're the next Toronto. And the East Scarborough storefront is helping to lead the way.
I think where you live have a whole lot to do with your outlook. You know, they often tell people if you go into an interview, dress your best. And I think that's the way with the building, that you put the best foot forward, you dress your best.